Welcome to Tailslate Podcast, a podcast dedicated to filmmaking and filmmakers. Here we cover everything from films that we love that are either in theaters or on Netflix, great TV shows that are out there that need more recognition or attention, and we talk about filmmaking itself, especially from like an independent filmmaking standpoint. You know, the hustle it takes to get short films out on the map, what it takes to get films into festivals, and just generally what we need to kind of learn to try to break it into the industry. I'm your host Fareed, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, who I'd like to introduce, Toby. Toby, say hi.
Hi, this is Toby.
And
Just co-hosting right here.
so Toby and I are two. I think it's fair to call us independent filmmakers at this point. We're independent and we make films, so I think that...
Yeah, I mean, it's what I put in my Tinder bio, so yeah.
Right, perfect.
I hope it's true.
Right. Anything someone puts on Tinder is the truth, Toby. So, I guess you could say we're independent filmmakers, and as graduates from the same film school, we've got plenty of shared experiences both on set, mostly of student films, and occasionally the larger kind of budgeted film. And we're just two really kind of passionate film or movie buffs that just want to talk movies. So, you know...
Just two peas in a pod.
Yeah, that's it. Just two guys and...
Just two guys who are definitely not sitting in the same hot tub. Definitely not. Definitely not.
I want to circle back, Toby, actually, to kind of... Since this is our first episode, I think... to get well acquainted with our core audience, apart from the people who already know us, who are probably most of the people watching this first one. Hey guys, but just
Hey guys,
for like
it's us.
Yeah, but for
We're talking.
Let's kind of get into our time in film school, and before getting to the surviving film school thing, which could be an interesting thing to talk about.
You want to go into our origin stories?
I haven't read the comic book, so I think you might as well tell them. So we met in a workshop for After Effects, didn't we?
Yeah.
We were kind of getting along because we talked a bunch about comic books, and I think at the time the Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition was coming out, and I was kind of singing its praises. And you were all adamant that the film was bad, and I was just like, you know what? I'm not even gonna attend this workshop now because he said that. So I just skipped every one of them. You remember that?
Okay, that is not what happened. The way I remember it, we were talking about it, and I remember you saying this. You were like, No, it's actually a good film. And your explanation was you had taken the film and re-edited it yourself. And you were like, now it's a good film. And you thought that made it better now.
Okay, so listen, first off, you can't call yourself a real film student if you haven't tried to recut Batman v Superman at least once. At least once.
Fake film student, yeah.
The thing was, I had seen the theatrical cut. It feels like ancient now, but I'd seen the theatrical cut and felt like it was just kind of hacked to pieces by the studio. You know, you can tell when a movie's kind of reshaped in post. Mm-hmm. So I thought, hey, when there's like a copy of it that I could find somewhere, I'd get my hands on it, and I'd try to do my own version. So I recut the theatrical cut. I just for fun did that, and then the Ultimate Edition came out, and that kind of, you know, it kind of fixed a lot of what I was thinking needed to be fixed. It's flawed. It's really flawed, but it flows very nicely.
Here's the thing. I don't think I'm ever going to watch the Ultimate Cut. I can't. I already saw the theatrical version. I have no drive, need, or want to watch a longer version of something I didn't like, you know?
Sure.
So maybe you're right. I'll say, you know what, maybe it is the better version, and it's actually a really great film with that Ultimate Cut, but I'm not going to watch it, though.
I mean, look, I hear you, you know, it's like, the theatrical cut was abysmal, you know, and really ruined that film. I mean, look, even the Ultimate Cut, it's not as good as the Turin Horse, you know what I mean? And that's still a movie that I would say you need to see.
You really want me to see the Turin Horse, don't you?
I really want you to see the Turin Horse. Everybody should see the Turin Horse. And then after that,
everyone should watch. Could you tell them what year it's from and who's the director?
I mean, okay, so, well, the reason I'm bringing it up so much is because it is literally quarantine the movie in a way. You know, it's like just classic Bellatar movie, and Bellatar's this kind of Hungarian filmmaker, this really dark Hungarian filmmaker, genius if you ask me. And his movies are these really long, some would say monotonous movies about, just life going on, and there's often a great story behind it. There's some great movies he's made with a real agenda to them, but this one's more or less kind of just really grim, just about this father and daughter in a little cottage just living life. It's impossible to describe the plot because there is no plot, but it's better than Batman v Superman, so I'll give it that. It's also better than Man of Steel, right. I think, just by a hair. Yeah, it's that good.
That is the first time I've ever heard you say that. Are you only saying this because you're being recorded now?
No, I'm serious, dude.
Okay. All right.
I mean, no, legit. I mean, Man of Steel is maybe the best movie ever made, but Turin Horse is better. You know what I mean?
No, the best film ever made is X-Men First Class.
Of course, I honestly feel I'm ashamed. I retract my previous statement. It's got to go to X-Men First Class. I mean, Orson Welles could never have dressed up in like a yellow spandex suit, never, and it's not like
I'm sure he wanted to, because the genius was already there for decades.
But he couldn't go all the way. He didn't go all the way, you see.
Exactly.
And you know what else, man? I mean, let's be honest with ourselves here. Just for a minute, Charles Foster Kane, what a great character. He had such an incredible rise and downfall, and he's such a great, what a great role. But, at the end of the day, he couldn't shoot lasers out of his eyes, and he didn't know how to fly. He certainly couldn't control metal. And, without that, how do you make a good movie? You can't. You can't
say, how great this human was and how great this person was, if they can't even... if they can't even turn their body into crystal,
I mean, we're done. Honestly, I mean, at that point, there's no reason to just quit, finish the production and try to salvage it in post,
Yeah, it's what you gotta do,
That's right.
Yeah, well, but going back, we just did a whole side story instead of just getting right into the origin, but
it was beautiful.
Workshop,
it was quite beautiful though, that side story, I have to say.
It was nice. It was a good side story.
Yeah.
Anyways, that workshop we were together, you skipped a few of the classes because you were working on, which film was it at the time?
Exhibition. It was a film
Exhibition?
called yeah, and it was a really nice experience. A bunch of students actually they would skip classes to come to the shoot. It was honestly complete chaos. We were in an apartment.
Didn't you get in trouble for that or something?
Well, actually, what happened was a very important professor in the school discovered that people were skipping class to come to that shoot, right? And I got a really scathing email saying, "You're not supposed to do that, and I'm very disappointed and angry with you." And I just went and cried in the corner for an hour, and then we had to keep shooting, so I stopped crying. So yeah, it was pretty hectic, but lots of fun, which is actually it's a good sort of a good point you made there, these little things you have to do, to get that shot, or to just make sure you have all your crew, is you got to disobey and sometimes go against what you should be doing technically. If you're going to school, I mean, hey, stay in school and do that, but if it means you got to skip a class to go shoot something, I'm of the, I guess you could say, pretty controversial opinion that you should go shoot that something and skip class, because it's worth it, especially in film school, right? Because film school is it's a very kind of mixed bag of experiences, where you kind of start off with something that's more or less academic, and I think no working filmmaker in this world would say that academia is more important than that field work, than practical experience, because that's filmmaking. You're not, if you want to do that, take film studies. I mean, I did a course in film studies too, and it's great, but it's not the same. So I think that if you're in a film school right now, wherever, and you feel limited with the kind of content you could actually shoot, then I don't think it's, unless it's a really important situation, because I don't want people now not we're gonna cause mass hysteria from this from this podcast, but I do think it's worth it sometimes to take that risk. So yeah, I'm of that belief. I went off on a tangent, but yeah, I was shooting that project, and that's why I couldn't meet you at the time. And I know you felt a bit bad about that, but we made up for it though, because we got you on the shoot. You were continuity, weren't you? In the end.
Yeah, but what most people should know about a Freed Chiron shoot, usually continuity doesn't mean anything because most things are done in 1 or 2 shots.
Yeah.
Like an entire scene will be done in 1 or 2 shots. So me coming in as a continuity person, I was just timing it and then it'd be done. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And also I wasn't there for all the days.
No. Yeah, we had crew.
Like you knew yourself that like I wasn't doing anything.
Did I? Oh, I don't remember that. We had crew.
Yeah,
we had crew coming in and out constantly. No, I mean, look. Yeah, I mean, I think on that particular shoot also because of time constraints, I couldn't get the safety coverage that I kind of wanted. But who likes coverage? I'm not a coverage fan. You know, it's like you're there for one purpose, and if it's a better day work if you could just kind of get it all in a take that, I mean, you can't always do it, you can't abuse it, but on that particular very student film, which I enjoyed making and I still enjoy just as a film, it's like you it felt like the right thing to do, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Well,
you still had a days.
topic,
You still had work to do, though. I mean, people's hair and glasses on tables and that kind of stuff. I mean, not that much, but like
There were no glasses on people's tables, and everyone was bald on that shoot. You know that.
Well, okay, look, I was so busy, I just don't remember.
On
I don't
coverage,
I don't
though,
remember the hairstyle of my crew members.
We were all bald. I think you should be able to remember that.
Or maybe I've blocked out the memory because it gave me trauma. Look, you gotta think about that too. You were gonna say something about coverage. You were gonna say something about coverage. That's interesting.
Like because like we have different views of coverage because you have these very character driven pieces,
right,
where they'll kind of be pondering things for a while.
Yeah.
And you don't cut away, you hold on them, while I do much more comedic things like sketches, and when I do a short film, it doesn't have to be a comedy, but there's always this element of comedy in the dialogue, or how the characters play things off.
Yeah.
And so it needs to be faster and quicker, and so, or at least I like it faster and quicker.
Yeah.
And so I need a lot of coverage. And sometimes I have to merge things into 2 shots into 1 shot because of time, but like so like it's the difference between us in our styles.
I don't know about that because I think that coverage and by proxy something to cut to, which is really what you're kind of saying, is like something on the other side to kind of keep the timing going and the rhythm going. I think that's like, even especially in a film that demands one to linger more, that's kind of more sort of, you know, I guess you could say holding on images for like emotional impact. Are you sure you can trust that single take to do the job? And oftentimes in my own work, I've made the mistake of letting a camera stay on stuff that you kind of is like, okay, even like 7 frames would make the difference if I had just had something to cut to, but I don't. And so I think it's like, as much as I don't really like coverage as a concept, that's more the kind of bougie thing in me of like, you know, like you should go in and know what you want, and it's always better to kind of be organic and natural with the actors, blah blah blah. But the thing is, I think it's just a necessity, because especially for short films, because then it might save your life. You know, it could literally save your life. And I think that's like, I guess, a regret of mine with the short films I've done in the past, is feeling so confident on the page and even in rehearsal sometimes, and then on screen I was not able to kind of, I got what I wanted, but then in post suddenly it's not exactly what you thought it was on the day, and it's just this crazy
I mean, that also is like, post-production is a completely different animal sometimes than the set itself.
Right.
Like, something will feel so right on set, and then afterwards in post-production you're banging your head on the table because it's like, oh, how could I have done that?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Mel Gibson, who's like the least controversial person in the world, he recently, like actually a few years ago now, like Hacksaw Ridge was 2016, right? Yeah, my God. He talked about how the edit is the final rewrite. And it's so true. I mean, I think he stole that. I think a lot of people have said that, honestly. And
no, I've heard that many times before Mel Gibson.
Yeah, well, for some reason I remember it from him. I think because he was doing the Hollywood Reporter thing, so it was from there. And I think that's where those like right choices become wrong choices in post. Like on the day, you just in your soul you feel like you had it in that moment, and it was perfect, but it didn't quite turn out. So it's always important to have something as a backup, a contingency. And what I'm talking about is basically, like, you shoot that insert, you never know, or just do a profile. I mean, like, okay, you spent three takes now, and you got your second one, you kind of got it, and you did one for security, that's good. Your first AD is telling you, hey, look, you got 5 minutes left, and then you got to do another setup. I think the wise decision would be to just kind of play around, and I don't think asking for just changing the camera placement by a hair to like a profile, or having a lens switch to, like, I don't know, the 85 or something, it makes the difference, and it can actually make you, it could save your life, like I said.
It can save your life.
It can save your life.
A mugger right now could tell me, like, make it a close up instead of a wide shot, and you're like, okay.
No, yeah, literally, and then
he's got you at gunpoint.
Yeah, and then you don't have to, you don't have to worry about attending AA meetings when your film tags. It's like, I mean, put it this way, right? Like, you spend all this time prepping, you spend months on end just like outlining every shot. You could be as prepared as possible. You could literally storyboard every frame of it. Like, I don't know, Zack Snyder does that. M. Night Shyamalan actually prepares a lot too. A lot of these kind of commercial Hollywood directors have to really plan it out because they're dealing with big movies. But any movie at all, like a short film on a 5D, you could do that. But the process of being on set, especially when you have less money, less experienced crew, less crew in general, bad food, they'll probably kill the film, but bad food, all this stuff.
Yeah.
You have to consider that it's just going to organically change, probably for the worse, and you just have to be solving problems. And their problems are harder than a lot of problems that filmmakers working on actual films have, because you are completely...
It's always that human element.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. You're completely... Like, everybody's just either there because they like you, or because they kind of like your idea, and... Not that they'd rather be somewhere else, but it's like they're not doing it professionally, probably, if you're making a student film, or a short with pals, for sure, then it's not. And if they're professionals and you got them, great, fantastic. It's going to elevate the whole experience, but, like, really, it's all going to start changing. You could have even camera tested it, in that same location, right? And then when you frame your shots, suddenly it just doesn't feel the same. It's weird. It's like auditioning actors, actually, Go from that first audition to, like, when they're on set, it's like, what is this? And we have it especially bad.
And that's not always a bad thing.
It's not always a bad thing, but it's I'm just kind of using it as a comparison of, like, what could, if a potential change, And I think that we, like, broke young sort of wannabe directors have it worst, because it's like we're not in an environment where we feel 100% safe just as creatives, I mean, not that actual filmmakers feel any more safe. It's like they're working in the industry. They have massive pressure. They have to deliver. Like Ari Aster on the set of Hereditary, I can't even imagine what he was going through, with this kind of very idiosyncratic breakout horror movie, very, very dark, very strange. Like, I can only imagine. And, but at the same time, he had A24. He had a trusted kind of crew, and he had all that backing, and he had the budget, and he had all that. He sold the movie. His pitch won the deal. He got the green light. When you're just kind of doing it on your own, you feel like you're completely in the wilderness, And it certainly led to me making very brash decisions that have drastically affected the quality of my work. You meet a lot of people who I mean, it's impossible to, like, judge a short film properly, especially when it comes to you from a guy or someone who's like, hey man, I made this movie, check it out. Like, even me, like, as someone who makes short films, my first instinct when I watch a short film isn't necessarily I'm going to watch a film and I want to see how it is. It's, what can I say to critique it? Like, I instantly put on a hat of, like, a very analytical one where I'm not just because I make them. It's like, even as an audience, you show it to anybody, they'll feel like the feedback is more glaring to them than a real film is. It just can't, because a short film it looks like a short film, and it's a short film, and that's kind of...
You ever notice that sometimes people need to give feedback even though if there's nothing to say? Like, not to say, like, oh, a film's perfect or something,
right,
but, like,
right.
They'll find, like, sometimes you'll give them a script and they'll be going through it and they'll mark up each page even though if there's nothing wrong with that page,
Yeah, but look, I think that's more of it sort of the people themselves. It's more about the individual. I think that that's very common. I think especially in an art school or a film school where people really want to show you how great they are at whatever, or how adept they are at solving and recognizing issues in films, and that's quite common too. But I mean, I guess if you're just aware that what they're saying is pretty much irrelevant, then it's okay. It's like, let them talk, let them have that moment, I guess. But like,
let them have their moments in the sun. It shall be gone soon enough.
oh man. But yeah, back to what I was saying. It's like, what's also worse is oftentimes, and this is for any movie ever, many of these directors are aware of the flaws in their work, and many of them know that they made that they screwed up. And so when they're kind of told you screwed up, and this is a thing for audiences too, it's like when we know something doesn't work and we're kind of forced to put it in our movie, it's like you're poking holes in your child, you know what I mean? You're deforming it, and you can't stop it. And I think one thing that we've all got to be mindful of, I think, as just a film community, let's say, of people, is knowing that a lot of times it's important to acknowledge these issues and to kind of let them be known to the filmmaker, but then not to assume that they lack the understanding that that's a flaw, even especially if the flaw is so obvious.
But also on set, things are different, there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of stress. Sometimes your head's not that clear, sometimes you're going for something else, sometimes you're just caught up in it,
I mean, dude, like, it's like okay, exactly. And to build on that, like, say you're shooting in a place with no permits. Forget the fact that the landlord or whoever said you can. It's like you're still thinking about the security guard who might knock on the door. You're still thinking about people coming in and typing in the code to enter the place and making noises with walking up the stairs. You're still thinking about the fact that at any given moment, like, your AD is gonna tell you, hey, we can't get the shot, and you couldn't get the shot that you wanted, and that you have to combine and merge stuff all day. It's everything. It's more than just sets are strenuous. It's everything, especially in that environment where your budget is what, like, I can say in euros because we were in France, but like if you're dealing with 1,000 euros of budget, which is nothing, it's like, it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
These filmmakers had the guts to put out their flawed film on YouTube. It's like, well, I would go into it as, okay, let me tell them what they probably know, but also kind of commend them for probably doing their best. I mean, another example, Toby, would be in like a big movie would be if you look at Joker, the Todd Phillips Joker movie. If you look at that movie, and I think you know what I'm talking about because we've discussed this before, but that whole sequence in the can I spoilers for Joker? I'm pretty sure most people have seen it.
It was nominated for an Oscar. Yeah, you can talk about Joker now.
Right. Yeah. So it's Joker. So that whole sequence when he realizes that his girlfriend isn't real. Well, I guess that girl, the neighbor across the hallway, wasn't real, and we see that montage of like him with her and then without her, and then we realize that she's like a figment of his imagination. I don't know if that was something that Todd Phillips intended. If so, then he intended it. But it does come across, and you've said this too, but it does come across as a studio note come to life. It does come across as a studio mandated decision, and I do think that Todd Phillips is smart enough to know that. You know what I mean? If the rest of the movie around that is as good as it is, I happen to love that.
Because film. It's so obvious. Because it's so obvious that she's not real. Like the first time they go out, we're introduced to her that she has a kid.
Yeah.
And she drops the kid off at school. And then she goes over to his. That's right. And then he kisses her. And then they go out and all that. But there's never a mention of the kid. Never of, how did she find a babysitter?
Yeah.
Who's watching the kid right now?
Yeah.
And that's because, like, Joker in that film, he doesn't care about the kid. He doesn't care about her actual life. He cares about this. He cares about idea of woman instead of the person she is, and doesn't want to actually get to know her.
God, yeah, it's like he literally prioritize. I mean, honestly, that whole thing of when he gains the confidence after he attacks he kills those 3 Wall Street and he goes right to her place, and we're to assume that he maybe sleeps with her. It's like, it's pretty obvious that that's very implausible. To begin with, and
because that kid is there,
right?
That kid is there.
Well, that kid, but also I doubt that a guy who's clearly a little disturbed. I mean, it's very unlikely she would be flattered by that guy. You know what I mean? I think it's a bunch of things, kid included. And the thing is, right, by the time we get to that scene where she realizes that we realize that she's not real, and the real version of her shows up and is like, who are you, what are you doing in my place? That's technically all we needed, you know, to kind of gauge that she's not real. You didn't need to cut to that montage of her not, you know, her kind of vanishing in those previous scenes where she was supposedly there. But again, it's a studio, probably a studio note from Warner Brothers, and they were like, "Hey Todd, we want you to make this a bit more clear." And I guess Todd Phillips, he got to do what he got to make like a King of Comedy and Taxi Driver riff with $60 million. I mean, you know, he shouldn't complain too much. So I understand if he went with it, if that's what happened.
I mean,
you know?
yeah, and I mean like, but I watched it like a second time, looking specifically at that part. And I was like, you know, these do feel like two different shots. Again, we weren't there, and this is just theorizing, but that's what it feels like. Like, how many times have you shown a film or something where the character's mediating something or they're thinking something through, and then someone, like one of the producers or like someone at your school will say, I don't get it. And everyone else in the room gets it.
Yeah.
But just so happens that person who is actually very high up on the food chain doesn't get it, and you're like, but everyone else in the room got it, and then you explain it to them like, no, make it more clear.
What are your thoughts on that process of kind of getting notes and feedback on your like first rough? You know what I mean? Not your script or anything. Like, you shot the movie, it's done, it's in the can. You're with your editor.
I mean, you were with me when I for my thesis film, when we saw the rough cut.
Yeah.
I had procrastinated so long to see it, like a week or something, and then finally you made me sit down and watched it, and I put my hands and my face in my hands, and I just thought I messed up.
Right.
I messed up big time.
Well, the first assembly is usually pretty terrible anyway. So it was like this, like, must have been a pretty hard hitting thing, right? Because you hadn't even seen that yet, like, properly.
Yeah, and it just, and there's some, and honestly, it was just like trimming a bit of it that could fix some shots, and but like you go through that process and stuff, and I remember it like. I was so tough on my editor. I had this awesome editor, Doran Wong. We were in the same year, and he edited my film very well, and he was very patient with me because there was a certain point where we met, and I was like, okay, switch this shot. I don't like it. Let's find a funnier take.
Yeah.
And then we went through, and I was like, oh, this is a good one. And it was the same shot. And then I saw that, and I was like, okay, we're done. I've obviously... I'm gonna destroy my film if I'm allowed to keep going at this rate.
No, yeah.
So,
yeah. And so, do you feel like that final film, and this really goes for all your short films, like you as an example to other kind of independent filmmakers who are doing shorts, do you feel like any of your short films, the final cut, not like from script to screen, that whole thing, but that cut as is, do you feel like it's 100% your cut? Or is it that when you watch them back, sometimes you wish you could trim a frame off or something? Is it never ending for you?
Well, interestingly enough, for that film, what happened was we'd been working on the film, and our school has this process where you get to make a film for during the summer, and you have to go through this whole thing of the green light where they accept your scripts, and then you get to make a film during the summer. If they like your film, some of them get selected to go to this like really big theater in Paris, which is like a really big deal. And I was one of those in my last year. And there were certain changes they asked specifically. And some of them I really liked, but some of them were, I think this, and I had so many reasons why these small changes were bad for the film and how I didn't like them. And you could talk about it for as long as you want, but in the end of the day, it said, well, if you want to be screened at this theater, you need to play by our rules. And you can say that's unfair or whatever, but that was it. That was the reality of it. They're allowing me to that. It was a privilege.
But you were, I think you will be able to then remove those for your film for like, it's like non-school cut, you know what I mean? I think you'll do that, right?
Yeah, like for the festival cut. We're
Nice.
currently in the sound mixing process. The whole COVID-19 situation has made that come to like kind of a halt. It's definitely very slow if it's moving at all.
Yeah.
Hopefully by the end of April, I can start like calling my new sound mixer again, and we'll see where we can go from there.
Yeah.
But I will say this, like, when it was being screened, I remember, like, at a certain point putting my face in my hands and just, I whispered to myself, I made a shitty movie.
Yeah, and then
I remember saying that.
And you. What we should also mention is that you did win, the best film award in the end.
Yeah, yes,
So-
we won best film there. Yeah, but even every single step of the way, that's maybe just me as a person. I'm always very critical of myself. Like, things can be better, and I'm critical of others as well, which has really rubbed people the wrong way in the past. But I'm trying to work on that, because also you can't be too critical of people.
But I
think as a director.
But also I think it's great though, because I think being critical of others is kind of like an inherent necessity if you're going to be in this subjective creative field, and you're going to come across people who kind of viciously are kind of enslaved to their opinions, which oftentimes may not be the right one for that given situation. You know, I'm not just talking on set, just even for a script. And I think that some of that kind of, I'm not going to say aggression, but like that kind of critical way of thinking where you do have to really give someone the business for what they think, because you really have a fundamentally different viewpoint. I think that, well, at least with my experiences with you, right, because we've also collaborated together on stuff, it never felt like, well, first off, if it rubbed me the wrong way on a personal level, then I'm doing something wrong with the way I'm treating that whole experience. You know what I mean? It's a very difficult thing, I understand, to divorce one, especially if you're friends with that person, to like divorce your professional and personal lives. But at the same time, there has to be an understanding that, you know, if you're in that environment, people are going to be more temperamental, and there are going to be altercations and conflict. And in our case, for example, when you've given me critical notes, and you have many times, because I make really bad films, you have said that, you know, you've said things that have benefited the films, and some of those films became, I dare say, pretty good films because of a lot of your notes, you know. And
really good films.
And it's
which films are you talking about?
the ones in my basement that nobody can see, and and
right, yeah. Right. I was responsible for a majority of those notes. Give them more tentacles, I said.
Yeah, man, don't worry. That's the next one's gonna have a lot of that. But it's just like,
great.
I found that our discussions were very productive, because you kind of prefaced everything you were saying with, look, this is just what I think, and ultimately, if it's I'm the director, or if it's I have the final say, then it's up to me, right? But you do provide an alternate, and you acknowledge that there's still kind of a respectable playing field where I don't feel like I'm talked down to by like an intellect, you know, by like an intellectual, sorry.
Mm-hmm. No, well, I mean, like, you got to be aware the entire time this is subjective, and critics need to be a lot more aware of when they give notes and stuff, when they feel certain things, it is completely subjective. You can try to objectify it, you can try to objectify your subjective feelings, but in the end, like, it will always be subjective. You liked it or you didn't. You can explain, oh, I really liked it because of this, or, oh, and I think about this, or I think about that, and it makes me really not like it and stuff. But it's subjective. There is no objective good movie, objective bad movie, except X-Men First Class, which is the greatest film of all time.
Right, exactly.
When you give notes and stuff, nothing's more crushing than someone giving you a note they're describing it so objectively, when really it's just they didn't get it. And that can really hurt someone. That can really hurt their confidence in the script. I remember my first film, I had my first meeting and stuff with my directing professor, and she gave me notes and stuff. And at the end of it, and even throughout all of filming, I thought, I'm not worthy of being a director. I'm not good enough, you know? And that can really hurt you.
Yeah, well, in that case, I mean, that was also kind of in your formative experience, right? So, well, your formative experiences, so there's a certain kind of vulnerability there too when your professor tells you something that is so I guess wrong in a way, but also not very encouraging. But at the same time, like, as much as like going back to like someone just not getting it right. I think as much as it is a fault on that person for not being able to really digest the work right, I think it might also say, depending on the person, but it also may say something about the work at hand, that it's not doing its job right in communicating what it is, you know? It's not out of the realm of possibility. So I find when that happens
I mean,
to
that's
me,
always possible as well.
What I find when that happens to me is I just get really frustrated at myself, because I feel like I want to really prove that they're the person who's wrong, because there's an equal chance, there's a 50-50 chance that either that person is just didn't get it, or that I screwed up. And even if other people kind of get the film and that one person doesn't, I think I was told this by a professor actually, which was not to forget that one person. It was really kind of Bernie Sanders-esque advice, you know, like don't, like the guy who doesn't get it or the gal who doesn't get it, like just because everybody else got it, it doesn't mean you leave them out. You got to understand what it was, you know, because it's not that your film can possibly please or cater to everybody, but I think to give them the time of day is still crucial. But it leaves me frustrated, because then I find myself wondering, because I too get pretty self-critical at times, and find it hard to kind of accept compliments and good notes, as much as I love them for when they show up. It's like when immediately when there's a criticism, it's kind of like back to square one, and it's like everybody loves the structure, but John doesn't, and if John doesn't, the movie's bad now. You know, it's like it just goes on and on and on. You know what I mean? It's like
no, yeah, it's. I think I take criticism very well, because when someone tells me something, I know how to compartmentalize it to be like, okay, is that a subjective thing they said? Did they get it? I kind of ask follow-up questions to also help them. If you were to ask me what those follow-up questions were, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I learned them over experience, and just you eventually get a hang of it. But what's objective, when someone didn't get something, you kind of want to also appease them and know that their opinion is valued, even if you disagree with it.
That's right. That's right.
I do not take compliments well at all, though. I really don't. I don't, because I'm like, oh, well, that person's being nice. That person's... Even when I won the Best Short Award, I thought I was lucky. Until they told me afterward. I thought I was lucky. I thought I just got lucky, and that was why. Because I thought like there was another film that was definitely going to win it, but
right, yeah. Which is I mean, I guess that's a common occurrence among a lot of the more humble crowd, let's say, of which I am definitely not a member of. But it is great that you still kind of keep yourself grounded that way, you know, that you still kind of have that fallback of like, yeah, this could be all great and I might have won this award. Like a lot of people get like a monthly festival gives them an award pretty quickly, you know, and it's like you look at that award and you think great, you know, and the thing is it's then a question of, yeah, but like it's still just like I could do so much more, I could do better.
But like what does the award even mean to it? Like what does the award really mean? It just means that in that crowd, those judges, the people responsible, you were lucky because a majority of them said this film, because it rung with them, because it was subjective, and so I was lucky. It was unanimous, but I was still lucky. I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to admit that fact, but I was lucky. It was that group of people that saw it that day, and they were and they kind of vibed with it.
Totally,
I was lucky.
Totally.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's the Oscars. Like when. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's cool. It's cool.
I was going to go on a big rant.
About the Oscars?
Maybe.
Oh boy. That's a can of worms for another episode, bro. But yeah, so for closing remarks, I think that we covered a lot of great stuff today. I think we were able to get through a lot of good...
Let's pat ourselves on the back for that.
Yeah.
Good job, us.
Yeah. We tend to kind of go off on tangents, but hopefully they're still relevant to you in some way. I mean, we try to talk about filmmaking, and especially from like a young filmmaker's perspective, a filmmaker who's maybe just finishing film school or about to kind of trying to break into the industry.
If there's a topic you want us to cover that we haven't gone to, like just put in the comments and we can see if we can get to that eventually.
Actually, like, yeah, we're so desperate for viewership. Like, we will like...
You want us to review all the Magic Mike films? We'll do that.
Being that this is our first episode, obviously we hope to kind of branch out and also, you know, eventually have other people on the show as well who are like-minded people who are either filmmakers or writers, directors in the industry, outside
And
of the
different-minded
industry.
people.
And yeah, sure, and all kinds of people.
Different-minded people. People who say, I don't really like movies, and will just like sit there for an hour and not know what to talk about.
That could be pretty fun too. I wouldn't count that out.
I'll just bring my dad in here, and he'll be like, I wanna see Braveheart again. And I'll be like, okay. We've seen Braveheart for the past 7 nights. We need to watch a different movie.
Never gets old, man.
What
It's
about
Braveheart. Never gets old.
What about Braveheart 2? There's no Braveheart 2. They killed him at the end of Braveheart. There's no sequel to that.
Wow, you just spoiled Braveheart. The thing. Well, it's okay. It's Braveheart. All right.
It's existed for a very long time and is based off semi-historical facts.
True. Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember it that well. Anyway, so that about does her. Let's wrap it up. Toby, I want to thank you for being a wonderful co-host as always. And
I want to thank you for being a wonderful human being.
You just like took this to another level, and now I feel like I don't know if there's any higher to go.
Freed, I want to thank you for being a fantastic concept it's too hard to comprehend.
Transcends space
so we
and time.
apply
Yeah.
So it transcends human emotions, and so we give an arbitrary title of Farid. But really, what is it? Farid is different to so many different people. Farid, I want to thank you for being a fantastic existential concept.
Well, I'll take it. And yeah, until we do this again, catch you guys later.